The Roman navy was one of the most advanced military forces of the ancient world. It controlled the Mediterranean Sea, protected trade routes, and allowed Rome to move its armies faster than any rival. Its ships carried weapons, soldiers, and supplies that expanded the empire's power across 3 continents. Through engineering, discipline, and innovation, the Romans turned the sea into a battlefield they could dominate. Their tactics, technology, and organization made them the deadliest naval power of their time. Number 1. Rome's secret weapon. The true power of the Roman navy came from a weapon that was not made for direct battle, but for control: the harbor chains. These massive iron barriers could seal entire ports, trapping enemy ships inside or blocking them from escape. Each link was forged as thick as a soldier's arm and anchored between heavy stone towers on both sides of a harbor. When enemies tried to attack, Roman engineers raised the chains from the water, locking their fleets in place. Once trapped, enemy ships were easy targets for fire arrows and catapults from the shore. This invention changed how Rome defended and conquered coastal cities. It was more than a barrier. It was a message that no one could enter Roman waters without permission. The chains were used in key naval bases like Ostia and Ravenna, and even in captured ports where they reinforced control after a victory. They also protected supply routes that kept Rome's armies fed and armed across the empire. The system worked hand in hand with Rome's advanced harbor design. Their ports had curved walls that broke waves and narrowed entries that funneled ships into specific paths. That made it easier to trap or ambush intruders. In some campaigns, they even built false inlets that lured enemies into dead ends filled with hidden catapults. The harbor chain was not just a weapon of iron, but of fear. It told every enemy commander that the sea itself could turn against them. Rome didn't just build walls on land, it built them in the water too. This quiet, simple mechanism made the Roman navy one of the most secure and strategic forces ever to command the Mediterranean. Number 2. Fire and sand. The Roman navy gained its terrifying reputation not only through size and discipline, but through its mastery of ancient naval weapons. Among its most feared tools were fire-based and sand-based weapons that turned the calm sea into chaos. Roman engineers developed ways to launch flaming pots filled with pitch, oil, and resin from catapults and ballistae mounted on their ships. When the jars exploded, they spread sticky fire that clung to wood and armor. Water could not put it out. Entire decks became burning traps within seconds. These tactics shocked enemies who had never faced organized fire attacks at sea. Roman fleets used these weapons during campaigns against Carthage and Eastern kingdoms, where wooden ships filled with tar were easy to ignite. Fire at sea meant death. Even a single spark could destroy an entire formation. Roman captains trained their crews to fire in volleys and control the wind direction to spread flames toward enemy ships while keeping their own vessels safe. But the Romans also understood that vision was a weapon. They created clay pots filled with fine volcanic ash and sand from regions like Campania. When thrown onto enemy decks, the mixture exploded into blinding clouds. Sailors lost sight, coughed, and stumbled while Roman marines boarded their ships. The effect was instant confusion, followed by close combat that always favored the disciplined Roman soldiers. This combination of fire and sand transformed naval warfare. The Romans no longer relied only on ramming or boarding. They brought siege tactics to the sea. Every battle became a storm of heat, smoke, and fear. These ancient weapons showed how the Roman navy turned science and strategy into destruction long before gunpowder was ever invented. Number 3. The shadow fleets. Behind the visible power of the Roman navy existed a secret network known today as the shadow fleets. These were small, fast ships that operated in silence far from the grand armadas that carried Rome's banners. Their missions were not about open battle. They were about intelligence, sabotage, and control. The Romans called them naves speculatoriae, or ships of spies. Crews were handpicked from the most skilled sailors and loyal soldiers. They worked under direct command of high-ranking officers and often reported only to the emperor himself. These ships were painted dark and stripped of decorative elements to blend into the sea at night. They sailed without lights, relying on the stars and small shielded lanterns for navigation. The shadow fleets moved along the coastlines of enemy territories, gathering information about ports, troop movements, and trade routes. In wartime, they cut anchor lines, sank supply barges, or set fires in enemy harbors before dawn. Every move was planned with precision to cause confusion before the main Roman fleet arrived. Their importance grew as the empire expanded. During campaigns in Egypt and the eastern provinces, the shadow fleets disrupted local economies and isolated rebels before legions even landed. They also carried diplomats, spies, and sometimes assassins across the Mediterranean. In many cases, their presence decided the outcome of entire campaigns without a single open battle. The Romans understood that dominance required more than visible strength. Control depended on information and fear. The shadow fleets gave them both. These covert operations turned the Roman navy into something more than a military force. It became an intelligence network that reached into every corner of the ancient world. Even in peace, the sea was never truly quiet under Rome's rule. Number 4. The ocean as a highway. The Roman navy turned the Mediterranean Sea into a controlled network of movement and communication. What looked like open water to others became a highway under Roman command. Their ships did not only fight wars, they carried messages, troops, and trade that kept the empire alive. Every Roman fleet worked like part of a single machine that connected provinces across 3 continents. From Spain to Syria, from Egypt to Britain, supplies and soldiers moved faster by sea than any army could march on land. The Romans built specialized ships for every task. Fast couriers known as actuaria delivered orders from the capital. Large transports moved horses, siege engines, and legions across the sea. Grain fleets from Alexandria brought food to Rome every season, feeding nearly 1 million people. Naval patrols guarded these routes day and night. This system made famine and rebellion less likely because the empire could react quickly to any threat. Harbors became the beating hearts of logistics. The port of Ostia near Rome was expanded with warehouses, docks, and lighthouses that guided ships safely at night. In the east, the great port of Caesarea was built using volcanic concrete that hardened underwater, a technology far ahead of its time. These engineering achievements made the empire's supply lines almost unstoppable. The Roman navy also mapped wind patterns and currents to create accurate sailing calendars. Captains learned which routes were safest during each season. Some historians believe they kept early weather records to avoid storms and plan long-distance voyages. This coordination made the Mediterranean a Roman lake. For centuries, no rival could challenge their control. The ocean was not a barrier. It was the bloodstream of the empire. The Roman navy proved that mastery of the sea meant mastery of the world. Number 5. The navy that outlived Rome. When the Western Roman Empire collapsed, its legions disappeared, but its navy did not die. The fleets that once ruled the Mediterranean changed names, crews, and flags, yet their structure and tactics survived for centuries. Many Roman sailors and officers fled east and joined the forces of the Byzantine Empire. There, they rebuilt the fleet with the same discipline and organization that had made Rome invincible. This was not a new navy. It was the continuation of the old one. The Byzantines inherited Roman ship designs, command systems, and even the tradition of permanent naval bases. The most famous result of this legacy was Greek fire. This mysterious weapon could burn on water and stick to everything it touched. Historians believe it evolved from the Roman practice of launching flaming oil jars in battle. The Byzantines guarded its formula as a state secret. It became the most feared naval weapon of the Middle Ages. When it ignited across the sea, it carried the memory of Roman innovation. Roman naval influence also reached beyond the Mediterranean. The empire's maritime laws, known as the Lex Rhodia de Iactu, shaped later European and even modern sea codes. The idea that merchants and shipowners share losses during storms or attacks began with Rome's naval system. This showed that Rome's control over the sea extended not only through weapons, but through law and trade. Archaeological finds continue to confirm how advanced this navy was. Divers have discovered Roman wrecks with cargo intact, amphorae still sealed, and catapult stones lying on the seabed. Some vessels were found near Greece and Sicily, preserved by deep water. These discoveries reveal fleets that were built to last, both physically and culturally. Even after the fall of the Western Empire in the 5th century, the concept of a professional, state-controlled navy never vanished. It became the model for future European powers such as Venice, Spain, and Britain. Every modern warship still follows the Roman principle that sea dominance ensures political power. The Roman Navy did more than protect an empire. It created the blueprint for every naval force that came after it. In many ways, the Roman fleet never truly sank. It simply changed its flag and kept sailing through history.